Hello, everybody. Happy August 18th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. But, however, on today's show, we have a special guest. We have the Executive Director of the CIAC, Glenn Lungarini. Glenn, it's great to have you on.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and hopefully reach out to especially some of our student athletes during this time and share any information that we can.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty and the hard questions, I want to ask you, how are you and your family doing? I know you have a couple kids yourself and you have a wife as well. How are you guys dealing with this pandemic?
I appreciate that question. We're doing well. We're fortunate that everybody is healthy, and good on our end. And yeah, we have I have three kids and one in high school and two little ones, a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. So they're busy nights and and busy days. But much like sports, everything you do is for your kids, and much like with your family, everything you do is for your kids. And so we're fortunate to be healthy. Thank you for asking.
No problem. Happy to hear that everybody is safe and happy and doing okay on your side. I think that's the most important thing because of the times that we're in, even getting away from what's going on with the CIAC and fall sports, no fall sports, etc. At the end of the day, family's family, and to hear that yours is doing well, I'm really happy to hear that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think it's we wouldn't be able to do what we do, and and I can't thank my wife enough. I think it's probably as hard as on her as anybody. Every interview where I'm out in front of a camera, like this, I'm leaving her with two kids right now, and I'm just fortunate to have an incredible wife, and thank you for that. So very appreciative. Thanks for letting me mention that.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Before I get into what's going on right now and I was able to do a timeline of kind of when things started till this point. I kind of want to just go back a little bit to the winter and the spring, just kind of that for a second. When the pandemic was going on and there was rumblings, I mean, you saw about how professional sports, college sports were starting to cancel because of the coronavirus. And I know that there was a lot of uproar. I mean, there was a protest at Cheshire that the students wanted winter sports back. For you, just kind of dealing with this at the beginning, how was that?
Sure. Looking back at that time, again, CIAC actually led the country in that, where we canceled it before everybody else did. And just understanding, from our how much we've looked at this, the conversations about COVID with CIAC actually started in February. So as we were approaching the wrestling championships is when we started having our first conversations and reaching out to our medical doctors and saying, we're heading into wrestling. Obviously close contact. Are we still safe to go? And at that time there was very little known about it. Nothing had come into Connecticut yet. We haven't. I don't think we quite saw the spikes in New York at that time, or at least it was just starting at that point. So, we felt that it was okay to continue, but we started having discussions then and continue those discussions, moving forward. When we were faced and thinking about making that decision, we actually did reach out on March 4th to DPH to see if there was somebody we can talk to at that point. And unfortunately, I think that they were just so busy that they didn't have an opportunity to get back to us before we made our decision on March 9th. But in our conversations, what we continued to learn, basically at that time there was very little known about COVID, but what we did know and come to know very quickly is just how highly infectious and contagious it was. So when we made that decision in March, the first case in Connecticut, if I recall right, it was I think 2 days before. I think March 8th was the first confirmed case in Connecticut, and then we started our boys basketball tournament. I think on Monday, March 9th, we continued to have conversations about it. And we got to the point to say, okay, there's a confirmed case in Connecticut. We know it's highly contagious. We don't know what we can do to help treat it, but the only thing we know right now is how infectious it is. So the only action we can take to help stop it is to cancel. And so that's what led us to the position to stop it. We did it based on expert, advice. We did it based on the knowledge that we had of the virus at the time. And as you said, we did that on March 10th. On the 11th or 12th is when we had the protest, up there, and quite a few kids, and I just want to say just about that as well. I don't think that was inappropriate. Our kids, there were a few kids that I think got a little aggressive, through some stuff, but that doesn't take away from the majority of kids that I think were there, voicing their opinion, and our student voice is important. They deserve that right. They deserve to come. They deserve to have their voice heard. I'll share with you more. If you would like to in this, some things that we've done to include student voice over the last 2 years at CIAC. But we weren't upset that they came up and protested. Sports is passionate. Sports has a lot of emotion to it, and it was our job as the adults in this case to take the emotion out of it and make the decision based on fact. So we did that, and as you said, and by the end of the week, the NBA I think went on Thursday. By Friday, the Big East and the ACC were pulling their players off of the floor at halftime, and by the end of the week, the entire sports world was shut down. And I give a lot of credit to our medical experts and our stakeholders, who got that right, before everybody else.
I just want to go back to what you said about how you have to take the emotion out of it and you have to make a decision based off of what you have in front of you and kind of do what's best for not just the students, but also family members and so on because of how contagious this virus is. Now, the question I have for you, being the way that this virus is and was, even going back to March, when did the discussion start of, I don't even want to say a fall plan, but when did fall start to become something that was a topic of discussion for you and the rest of the board?
April is when it started to become a discussion. So in April, we were looking at two things. We were looking at actually three things. We were looking at, is there any possible return to sports for the spring, and is there any possible experience that we can give kids? So that was our first priority. Priority number two was a combination of what should we be thinking in terms of summer experiences and out of season conditioning for our kids, and then also return to sports in the fall. So that was we began those conversations about mid-April, so right after April vacation for most of our schools. We were having those conversations, and again, we tried to engage DPH at that time. On April 16th, 16th or 17th, we sent an email to then DPH Commissioner Coleman Mitchell, asking for just some thoughts and guidance. Again, very specific questions about the summer, the spring, the summer, and looking forward to next fall. Unfortunately, we just got a out of office reply that she was at the emergency command center, and then we did receive an email back from the Joint Information Center about a week later, around April 23rd, basically that there really weren't any answers at that time of reopening, and pointing us to the frequently asked questions page. So we were having conversations, or trying to have conversations that early, but again, it was pretty much left to us and our experts to manage through that. So we started in April. We decided at that point that we would wait as long as possible before we made a call in the spring. We wanted to give every opportunity possible for those kids to have a spring experience. We didn't care if it was one game. We didn't care if it was just an inter-squad scrimmage. Just like our schools waited as long as possible to determine what to do with graduation, we wanted to give our kids closure. And it still bothers us that we weren't able to do that. We care about kids, and we wanted to be able to do that. So the best that we could do as an organization was, knowing that we couldn't provide that in the spring, to loosen up our rules for spring sports and allow our high school coaches to coach kids in the summer. And hopefully that gave some opportunities for our coaches and kids to be together. I think that was very successful. Um, Throughout that process, what was important to us as well was engaging kids. So we did engage kids in several public service announcements that I think people saw about following CDC guidelines, coughing into your arm, wearing a mask, washing your hands. They were fun ways that we can engage our kids from around the state on that. We also put together a virtual awards program for the Scholar Athlete Banquet and the Cass Arts Awards, which aired on Fox 61, to again recognize kids, just finding ways that we can to engage kids, encouraging coaches to have virtual contact with kids and allow them to talk about things like skill development and stuff. So if you were able to take swings off a tee, in your driveway, and videotape that, and a coach see that, we wanted to be able to provide that opportunity for kids. So we found as many ways as possible to engage them during that time frame as well.
And I commend both you and everybody involved trying to at least get somewhat of what wasn't a spring season for the athletes in Connecticut and for all over because of COVID-19. But even with the spring not happening, there was rumblings. People were talking. Maybe people were optimistic because of the summer, because you had AAU basketball, you had Legion, who was not affiliated with Legion, but were still playing, and the Connecticut numbers were going down. So I can kind of see why people were optimistic, and even people I talked to on my podcast about, hey, what do you think? Do you think that there'll be a fall season? And I think 99% of coaches and players I had said, we think there's going to be. So the question I have for you, Glenn, is were you personally, were you happy seeing both the numbers going down and what was going on as far in the summer, and made things maybe at least at first possible that a fall season could happen?
Absolutely. Again, we're sports people, but we're also all educators, and again, we care about kids. And there were a lot of challenging things for our kids during that time. Not only did they lose out on a lot of closure activities, but when our kids are in isolation and they don't have structured activities, there was a study that came out of the University of Wisconsin that showed that from March until June, for I think there was about 3,000 athletes that they had surveyed in Wisconsin, high school kids, and based on previous data that they had, were able to make some correlations, and saw that the incidence of depression had significantly increased, as had anxiety, and the opportunities for structured physical activity had decreased by nearly 50% over that time frame for kids. And again, it makes sense because you're just in isolation, and everything is shut down. So we value and understand the value that the more we can get kids back to structured activities, the better that's going to be for our kids. And the safer we can keep them engaging in this, and with the numbers staying down, we know it's having a positive impact on their physical well-being, but it's also having a positive impact on them mentally, socially, emotionally, and cognitively as well. So seeing those numbers decrease, seeing the success of the programs that we have, and the people that were able to get out there and do that with our kids was just outstanding. And again, we commend everybody that did that and got it out for the kids. And as we head back to school, we really believe that we can do it even safer than what people did in the summer as we head back to school and align with our school district. So, yes, we were cautiously optimistic is the phrase that we used very often, and it's the phrase I stay with. We're cautiously optimistic. The numbers in Connecticut are good. The numbers in Connecticut, supports sports being played, and our kids need it. So, hopefully we're going to be able to provide them some of those opportunities.
Now, the mental aspect I want to get to at the end of the podcast because I think that's something that a lot, and I know myself, I brought it up a lot. I know Joe Morelli from Game Time mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but it's something that really hasn't been talked about amongst the media. So I'm going to ask you that later in the podcast. But I want to get to the votes as far as before the decision was made, before, again, the decision being paused, as far as the vote was 9-1 as far as to push the season to the spring. But then going into the vote, as far as because you guys had the final say, I think everybody I talked to, from coaches to players to I even think my dog, said that there's not going to be a fall season. It's not going to happen. But when I saw that you and the committee said, hey, we're going to play, we're set, we're ready to go, we want to play, I think everybody was shocked, surprised, happy. I think all the words combined into one. So what led you to that decision at the time?
Yeah, and we've said all along that, our plan has to be fluid. We have to look at the information that becomes available to us, and we have to adjust appropriately with that. But along with that, we also have to look at the information that we have. And if things don't change, then we also, we need to be consistent. And from my perspective, I don't think from CIAC we have flip flopped at all. On July 6th, we returned with a resocialization plan that showed that we fully intended on playing this fall. On July 30th, we released the plan that was reviewed by the Connecticut Rules Committee on July 24th, which included DPH and reviewed separately with additional questions to DPH on July 28th. So when we released our plan on July 30th, we had full confidence that the plan we had was based in medical science and that it was appropriate to play. When the football committee met on Monday, there were two pieces of information that I think changed their perception. One, there was a perception that was given that superintendents across the state were not going to support football being played. And I think our football committee felt that if football was not going to be supported by superintendents, then we should look at another opportunity to play the game. We just didn't want it to be canceled. The other was that there was, I think, hope that the spring season would be a better time to get out and play. That hopefully at that point, COVID isn't an issue anymore. So based I think on those two positions, I think is largely explains why the people in the committee voted the way they did. And as you said, it was 9 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstentions. When we went to our Board of Control meeting, we heard directly from the executive director of the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. And we asked the executive director, where do superintendents stand right now? And she was very clear that there's no consensus. For every superintendent they talked to who didn't feel it should be played, they can find another who felt that it did. So, after talking with their group, they had no position that they can offer CIAC that was a consensus one way or another of whether or not football should be played. So the information that our football committee was working with was now different than what was expressed to our board, and so that was one piece. So then we had asked our medical doctors, is it going to be a better opportunity to play in the spring? And the answer was that there is no medical science or data that suggests that could tell us definitively that the spring is going to be better. What we know right now is we're at 1% or sub 1% in testing. We know that right now the data suggests you're able to play. We can't predict what's going to happen over the winter. We can't predict, how the flu season is going to impact COVID. There's assumptions in that, but until that happens, we don't know. So we can't say that in January it's going to be better than it is now, or in February or March it's going to be better than it is now. So you could, if you move, basically their point was, if you move football to the spring, just understand that you are doing that without medical data to support that position. And they were clear and said, it doesn't mean you can't do it. we're just telling you that the science behind it doesn't suggest that there's any definitive answer that tomorrow will be any better than today. You can only go by the data that you have right now. So at that point, that was the information that we had. We did reach out to DPH. We did ask them, and from the time of our plan being approved and moving on, again, DPH has been a great partner, and we asked them if we can stay in touch specifically on football. We really weren't talking about any other sport. We've only been talking about football since July 28th with DPH, and we did that because football is the only high risk sport we have in the fall. To us, it was appropriate that for that only high risk sport, as we continue moving forward, it makes sense as frequently as possible to touch base with our medical experts and with DPH and say, has anything changed? Where are the metrics? Are we safe to go? And continue to look at that. I would assume Pop Warners that are going are doing the same. Those youth football programs, some of them have canceled, some of them haven't. Those that haven't, a lot of them are already playing right now, with practices. So I assume they're doing, probably the same due diligence. So, we did have something that we were waiting on, a position we were waiting on from BPH. And, we suspected that their position, may be different based on the number of schools that have chosen to go hybrid or into distance learning. Because DPH has done an outstanding job working with the State Department of Education in our schools and developing back to school plans. But in talking with our medical doctors and not having a position yet from DPH, we could only act on the information we had. And they did say to us, they get us the letter as soon as possible. But we didn't have an indication that that was going to come Thursday or Friday or Saturday, when that was going to come. And our sports were set to begin, on Monday, yesterday. So our board, felt the most appropriate thing we can do is stay consistent, and consistently we've acted with the science. So we stayed consistent with our position on July 30th. Nothing had changed from the medical standpoint. And so we stayed consistent with that, but we also stayed consistent with stating, we will adjust if we get new information or different information that is that would suggest that we should, consider some sort of appropriate change. It just so happened that that position came on Thursday, but the narrative that has largely been played in the press that the first time we reached out to DPH to ask them their position on football was, at 1:49 a.m. is not accurate. It was my last, kind of attempt to try to get something before the 2:00, excuse me, 2:00 meeting that, they knew that we had coming up. And again, I don't think they didn't withhold anything from us, and we didn't withhold anything from them. It's just the timing just didn't work out right.
Now, I have a two-part question here, and this is about DPH specifically. There's, first off, because I know you guys have been having talks with them as far as about this entire thing throughout COVID and sports and so on. Was there ever talks about potentially the dangers of moving to the spring and then having to quickly play in the fall? Or is there a plan about, if it is pushed to the spring, that maybe even fall football in 2021 potentially could be moved just because of the safety of the players? And the second question I have is, did the information from the Big Ten doctors about potentially heart problems and inflammation of the heart, and that was their reasoning for canceling the fall season, was that something that has been talked about as well amongst DPH and yourself?
So let me answer the first question there in terms of, moving it. We haven't had that discussion yet. It will most likely be part of our discussions on Thursday. The reason we didn't have those discussions is because prior to their last letter, there was no indication that the science didn't support us playing football this fall. So, the discussion never got to the spring because the discussions always supported that, yes, it's a high risk sport, so we have to be mindful of it. We have to continue to monitor it and look for any indications of spikes in that because of the high risk nature of the sport. But we never got to the topic with them of moving into the spring until now. So we'll have some of those conversations, and even one of our questions for DPH, I think, as we move forward is kind of why their recommendation for football and volleyball to move to the spring. Again, our doctors feel there is no medical science or data that says the spring is going to be better than now. So we're curious from them, what medical data and science do they have that suggests that it will be. I think we all hope it will. I think we all hope that there's a vaccine by the first of the year. I think we all hope that it's effective and we can begin to put COVID behind us. But as you said, when you take the emotion out of it and try to just look at the science, the science doesn't say that that's an absolute. And so, we just have to act on the information we have. The second part of your question, can you remind me of that?
There was a part about, there was a doctor that came out a couple weeks ago or whenever, I think it was about a week and a
Oh,
half
yeah.
ago, when the Big Ten came out and said that we're canceling the fall season because our doctor said that COVID-19, that there amongst the players that did get it from the Big Ten, that it causes inflammation in the heart, and that they were concerned that that could risk either seriously ill as far as a player is concerned, or even kill a player. So was that something that was talked about amongst you and DPH?
Yeah, so it wasn't a conversation amongst us and DPH, but it was a conversation amongst our medical doctors and the consultants that we work with, including an infectious disease, another infectious disease person. And what we understood about that from our medical doctors, anytime that you have a virus, that potential inflammation around the heart exists. And that's why, anytime you have a fever or, that you're not supposed to play because you put yourself at risk in any situation. So again, COVID is a virus, so it presents that situation just as any other virus would, and again, because of the aggressive nature of COVID, it's something that you have to be mindful of, but, it reacts very similar to our understanding as any other virus where that is a potential effect of playing with COVID symptoms. So anytime a person has a fever, that's why you're not supposed to play. That's why you're supposed to be home for 24 hours until you're symptom free for 24 hours and come back. So that was our understanding. And the other understanding too was the inflammation syndrome. I can't remember the exact name right now, but that does seem to occur in kids, that they're still learning more about that. It does seem to impact kids who are slightly obese more than other kids. So that, they're still learning going on about that right now. But again, not a whole lot of known information about it, but we do know that in Connecticut, since June 17th, our kids have been successful playing. Our numbers have continued to decrease. So because our youth programs and clubs and AAUs have taken some steps in mitigating strategies for that, they've been effective. We feel as CIAC, because our next steps are going to include regionalization. Our next steps are going to include, no play outside of Connecticut, that we are going to tighten those mitigating strategies and make things even safer for kids than they are right now.
And I really do commend, again, the fact that you're, I'm a big solutions guy. I know my girlfriend, always tells me there's not a solution to everything. I think there is. And I really do. And I know that a lot of the coaches, if not all the coaches, I mean, I had a roundtable discussion yesterday with a coach from the NFA program, Guilford program, and Waterbury Academy. And they all told me that the coaches in Connecticut are with you, Lungarini. They support you. They commend you a lot for the fact that you're trying to help the young athletes, not just in football, but in all sports, because you're not just saying, okay, you know what, because you could have very easily have said, all right, you know what, too much of a stress. I've got too many kids. I've got a missus at home. I got to deal with that. but you're trying to help the youth and at least come up with some solutions. And to the credit of the coaches who saw that and to the players who respect you for that, they abided by the rules. And I didn't, except for I think Greenwich had a little bit of I wouldn't even call it an outbreak. I think one player had it, but they went by the rules. So I think for you to see that, you had to be happy by it.
Yeah, and I think that position you're kind of referencing in Greenwich, that I think it's important for people to understand that they didn't get that playing sports either. It was off campus that occurred. I think Chris was, if you're a problem solver and you have the solution to COVID, listen, you're done with this podcast. You don't ever have to work again. So, God bless you if you could figure that out. And, and I think that's what's important for people to realize. Again, we understand the frustration of kids, but, one of the phrases that we've talked about from a very early stage in the pandemic is when the time is right, Connecticut will play again. And I think we have to respect and understand people's personal choices that they have to make and the choices districts have to make. And when that time is right, may be different for people. It may be different individually for some, and it may be different from for some districts. And we respect that. And I'm hopeful that superintendents can respect that with us as well. We want to give you the opportunity to play, but we also want to respect that you have the right to choose what's best in your district. So, as this plays out, we just want our kids to understand and our coaches to understand our ultimate goal is to support our member schools any way we can. Our goal is to get our kids meaningful experiences as much as possible. And we will continue to work for our kids and our schools to do that. So, if schools decide not to play, we will not give up on you. We will continue to work with our member schools who decide that they can't play right now to see what opportunities will be available when the metrics are better. And just we just want our kids and our coaches to know that there's not going to come a time that we're going to give up on you unless the metrics in Connecticut tell us that it's not safe to be out there and play. And then we demonstrated if we have to make that difficult decision, we will. But we also demonstrated that if we can do it safely, we believe that we should put you out there and get you those experiences because it's so important for our kids from a physical, mental, emotional standpoint. Our kids need that as much as they need to be back in the classroom for instruction.
Is it possible that the coaches are going to be able to watch this committee on Thursday between both you and the DPH and kind of see what their information is showing, pardon me, and then what you're trying to present as far as trying to say, hey, our information says we can play. DPH will be saying, this is why maybe you should push it to the spring. Will coaches be able to watch this in any sort of way?
Probably not the actual meeting. Again, with the time frame it's taken place, we don't have, all of our staff available at that time. We're trying to meet the needs of the doctors to get them to the table. DPH's position is certainly out there for anybody to see and read. We are working on our response and hopeful that we can provide that to DPH in advance. And when we do, we'll make that available to the public too. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have something that, people can see just our position and our thinking of that going in. But, and again, I know, there's conspiracy theories everywhere, but I think people need to trust that, CIAC is walking into this with the position that, again, we believe that it's safe for kids to play and we can do it safer than most. And we want to have that opportunity again to share why we have that belief with DPH. And we want to hear, what made them take the position that we have now. And hopefully we can find some common ground on that. They're good people at DPH. We appreciate everything that they've done. And we're confident that this is, really an opportunity for open discussion between both sides. At the end of the day, again, we're talking about trying to do what's right for kids, and we're going to keep focusing on that, and hopefully we can come to some common ground.
I think I do have one more question for you, and Mr. Lungarini, I really do appreciate you coming on and spending some time with me. I know we're a little bit past 6:30, so I do apologize. This is the final question. I know you have kids to worry about. The mental health aspect is very important for me because my family has dealt with some of that, and I know other families have as well. And because I see the youth and I understand what they've been going through, and I understand not being able to play sports and seeing their friends and just kind of being young, being kids and enjoying their life. And when I see and read articles like the Washington Post, there was an article where there's been a study since 2007 with the Great Recession. And I saw that every percentage that goes up as far as unemployment, 1.6% increase in suicide rate. And I bring that up because a lot of these kids' parents, not to say all of them are unemployed, but that I think it's safe to say that a lot of them are dealing with this and the kids see this. So my question for you is, if fall is not played at all and it's pushed to the spring, or let's just throw out a hypothetical that sports are not played at all. Are there going to be any plans for the not just the students who play sports, but overall to try to help them as far as with their mental health and support them going forward?
Yeah, and I think UConn does some great work on statistics of depression, suicide rate. In various populations, but kids as well. So we're very well aware of that data, and again, we referenced earlier the Wisconsin study that was specific to kind of the impact of COVID on athletes, and I think what sports particularly does for kids is it provides a structure, and gives kids an opportunity to engage in structured physical activity, which helps promote relationship building for kids within peers as well as the adults that they're with. It puts positive adult role models in their life, and it puts positive peers in their life that share a passion and an interest that they have. As far as a connection to school, I think for a lot of kids, sports is the motivation to get to school. I think a lot of kids, strive to do their work to make sure that they're eligible to play. I think they take a lot of pride in playing for their school and community, and it's a great motivating factor for kids. So, as we said, you have about 39,000 kids who play fall sports alone. That's about 23% of our high school population. And that's a pretty good motivating factor to get together with kids this fall and say, listen, we have an opportunity here to be together for a period of time, and to do that we have to be safe, and we have to focus on school, our family, and our team, and try to avoid the temptations to get to the social parties and keep things safe, keep Connecticut's numbers low. Because if we can stay in school and we can stay in sports, that's going to be good for everybody. And I think sports will have that motivational impact. I think marching band will have that motivational impact. Theater will have that motivational impact more than anything else that we do. And that's why interscholastic athletics is an extension of the school curriculum. It's not separate from it. We take the school curriculum and we build upon it after school. So the mental health of our kids, we think, does directly relate to not only what we engage them in the classroom with, but also how we engage our kids outside of the classroom. And we believe we can do that safe right now. If it's again, if we have that worst case scenario that you're painting out there, Chris, we got to end on a high note here. And you're asking me what happens when nobody can play. We have proven ourselves again through the spring of ways that we can engage kids virtually, keep them connected with coaches, and also find ways to recognize and honor them. But there will never be a point in time that we abandon our kids, or we give up on them. They're too valuable to us. They're too important to us, and we will not do that. So whatever the situation is, that CAS and CIAC is doing the absolute best to provide exceptional experiences to our kids. And we appreciate everything that they're doing on their own right now to get back and be there. And just know that we support you guys. We appreciate everything that you're doing. We'll continue to care about you. And, together, there's going to be a time that we get through this, and let's stay together, keep working at it, stay positive, and let's really inspire people moving forward, and just show them how great student athletes in Connecticut, and just students in Connecticut in general, really are. We're going to be the ones that lead the country out of this.
And that's a great way, well said, and I think we should end it right there. Once again, I really do appreciate you coming on and being able to take some time to be able to talk about the various issues that have been going on as far as even going back to the winter till now. I'm really intrigued to see kind of how Thursday's going to go. Now, real quick, will there be an answer on Thursday, or will it just be discussions?
I don't know yet. There won't be anything announced on Thursday. Again, we're meeting Thursday evening to accommodate, the very busy schedules of everybody. Particularly, want to make sure our medical professionals who have, OR times and things scheduled during the day can be there. We think it's important for our medical people and theirs to be in discussion. So we want to, provide that opportunity. So, being how late that is, the next day our board will certainly have to digest some information. We understand the timeframes and the interest from people, so we certainly want to communicate as soon as possible. But again, we want as much as we can our next communication to be the direction that is going. So our kids and our coaches and our athletic directors have done such an incredible job since July 6th in preparing, know exactly where they're going to go.
And I'm looking forward to hearing just the information in general because, at the end of the day, I think people now, because with computer and cell phones and all that, they just want information. And,
Mhm.
I think people will be staying close to their phones and computers, waiting for somebody to say what happened in that meeting. But I'm going to wrap it up right now. Once again, thank you so much for being able to come on, Mr. Lungarini. I look forward to being able to talking with you again in the coming weeks, and we'll have a decision. And good, bad, or indifferent, you know, I think what you're doing for the student athletes and for the kids in Connecticut, I understand what you've been getting on social media. I don't agree with that. Everybody is human. Everybody makes mistakes. Trust me, nobody's perfect. And, the coaches support you. I admire what you're doing and keep up the good work.
Appreciate that, Chris, and thank you again. And to your listeners, again, thank you for all that you're doing. And let's just keep working for our kids. It's the best that we can do. Thank you, and we'll talk again soon, Chris. Thanks.
Now, wrap things up in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And as always, have a good day, everybody.